Welcome to another edition of Interruptions. I'm your host, Otis Smith. We have another treat for you today. My next guest is a former NBA player with the Milwaukee Bucks. He is also a Hall of Famer in the Naismith Hall of Fame. He was inducted last year. I'm talking about no other but than a bad man. Y'all kids today just don't know how good Mr. Sidney Moncrief was back in his day. How you doing, Sidney?
Well, Otis, I appreciate the compliment. Everyone has their day, and mine has come and gone, but I had fun when I was in it. Sure did.
I enjoy. I remember growing up watching because I never had an NBA team, even though I'm born and raised in Atlanta. I never had an NBA team. I kind of always just rooted for certain players. And so I remember, growing up, I was a Julius Erving, Dr. J fan, and then of course I saw the emergence of Charles Barkley coming up. But it was just one team that they kept running into that you guys gave fear. And that was those Milwaukee Bucks with you, Terry Cummings. I just remember those battles. In the East with the 76ers, with the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics. Everybody wanted somebody to beat the Boston Celtics.
Everybody wanted someone to beat Boston. Absolutely.
You root for anybody, just beat Boston. So how have you been doing everything in regards to this pandemic?
It's great. It's great. Of course, just staying safe. I'm still traveling a lot. Vacations and trying to keep my business going and staying active as possible, exercising. With the pandemic, I'm not eating out as much. I'm back to eating out more, but when it first hit, I was like, wow, I lost weight. I had to cook at home and got out to exercise a lot. But I'm staying active mentally, physically, emotionally, just staying engaged, and I feel great.
Okay. Well, my first question for you today is, what was it like? What was the feeling for you as you was growing up, playing high school ball, and then you got that scholarship to go to Arkansas? What was that like for you and your family?
It was different. Of course, those days, your parents didn't really care if you played basketball. My mom did not want me to play basketball in junior high school. I had to play anyway. So she wasn't really a big follower of basketball until I got in high school. And being in Arkansas, which is a football state, as you know, basketball was not very prominent. We talked about the Boston Celtics. I grew up being a Boston Celtic fan because that's all you saw on TV on Sundays. You saw the Boston Celtics. They were winning championships. Bill Russell, Sam Jones, those great teams, John Havlicek. That's the basketball I grew up on. And then the ABA, you talk about Dr. J. I watched the Virginia Squires and the New Jersey Nets and the Kentucky Colonels, and the Memphis Tams. We can go on and on about those great ABA teams with the red, white, and blue basketball. So we saw more basketball. Let's take away college right now. We saw more pro basketball, not more games, but more different teams during that era because you had the ABA, you also had the NBA playing at the same time. When I got my scholarship from Arkansas, I was recruited by a number of schools. Minnesota, I remember going to Minnesota and like, wow, this is really an awesome school, 17,000 seat arena, urban campus, nice hotel. It snowed though in September. I'm like, no, I can't go there. I can't do this. I'm a Southern guy. In Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, LSU, all these big schools were recruiting me, but my heart was in Arkansas. I'm an Arkansas guy, and I wanted to stay in the state. Wanted to build something special at the University of Arkansas.
I was always curious because you see what's going on today. You know how everything is a big production. Who's a 5-star recruit, 4-star? Who's this? Who's got the potential to go pro? And so I was always curious, what was that like in that process? When you were coming through, because it was totally different.
Otis, we didn't have the noise. We didn't have the noise. We could really just focus and just play basketball. I remember when I went to Minnesota, back then, we did not have a limit on the number of kids you can bring to a school. And I don't know, they had 15 to 20 kids up there that weekend.
Wow.
There was a lot of kids up there that weekend. And technically, you couldn't play against one another, but you always ended up playing against one another. And the college
pickup game broke out somewhere.
Yeah, technically they couldn't watch you play, but they ended up watching you play. And that's when I realized I went to Minnesota and I was playing against these guys from Detroit and Chicago, and I was just wearing them out. Then I went to LSU. I was playing against some really good players, wore them out. And it was like, okay, in your mind, you knew that you could compete on a higher level than what you once thought you could. And it was a lot of fun back in those days. You didn't have Twitter, you didn't have Snapchat, you didn't have Instagram. You just had the old newspaper, the radio, and the TV. You were not as distracted as you are now.
And I think it's a good and bad thing, but I think it was a little bit more good as far as not being distracted so young, in other words. And so young, because you got to focus, listen to the coach. You weren't a prima donna because it didn't matter how highly recruited you was coming in. Once you got under whoever the coach is, once you got under their tutelage, you had to do what they were looking for.
Yeah, and then in the neighborhood, you couldn't play. I don't care how good you were in high school. Remember those days? If people in the neighborhood, oh, he can't play. I used to bust them out when we played on the playground. So you had all this stuff. You didn't have a lot of, man, he's going to make it to the NBA. Oh, he's going to be an awesome player. You had a lot more negative chatter. The difference was it wasn't spread throughout the world like it is now. It was just it was right there in that neighborhood.
You wake up, you go to sleep. Yeah, you go to sleep and wake up now. You've trended.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a totally different game now. And the good part of that is certainly more players, male and female, they get the opportunity to be exposed. The negative of that is players are not as good as they think they are because they're hyped up so early, and they really haven't always earned all the press that they're getting. And sometimes they get to college and you have to bring them down. It's hard to bring them down once they get to college, and it hurts a lot of players.
Wow. Well, so you went in the direction I was gonna get there, but you already there. So let's go ahead and get that in. I like these type of interviews where I can just, the way you answer a question goes off script. So with that being said, Sam, what you're talking about, one of the things I'm nervous about, and I wanted to get your thoughts on. So, you have now they're talking about the players getting paid for their likeness. Excuse me, and going forward, players trying to work to be able to get paid, which I'm in agreement for it. Now, it's not that I'm in agreement for it, but do you think going forward, because we're putting so much emphasis on get money, right, that we're going to lose the value of an education and where that can take you? Because, like you said, you played at the highest level. You're a Hall of Fame basketball player. Everybody's not going to reach that level. Let's just be real. So do you think that with now everything being so emphasized on money, getting paid likeness, and all this other kind of stuff, that some of these kids are not going to value an education and going to get lost in the wash?
No, you know why? I think we were more likely back when I played to do that.
Okay.
We didn't really value an education because the NCAA did not make us value an education. Sure. Now, with the system they have in place, you have to be going towards your graduation. You have to have a certain amount of hours towards your graduation each year in order, as you know, to stay eligible. And then for the school to retain their scholarships, you have to keep those numbers going up academically. We had none of that. The coaches, in most cases, I played for Eddie Sutton, and he was very strict on getting your education and graduating. A lot of coaches just wanted these kids to play basketball, and they didn't have anyone to back them up. Their parents were not as savvy on getting a college degree as they probably are now. And so you just played basketball, and you ended up not even graduating, not even coming close to graduation. That doesn't happen as much any longer because the NCAA has these rules in place. So I think we were more likely back then than now, although let's talk about being paid. I'm like you, but I think they should have money set in escrow based on you graduating from college. It shouldn't just be paying players while they're maybe playing in college, because you have your scholarship, you have other funding that you can get, Pell Grants and such other funding. But just say it would be nice when you graduated from college to have that head start financially based on
Right.
money that's set aside in escrow for you. Would be like you getting a paycheck and you just prorate it for the next 4 years. Graduate, boom, you have this pile of money to help you get started.
Well, I was just concerned with because I know everyone is not going to reach that level that you reached. That still the average career is 3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you come. Let's say they change the rules, which they're thinking about doing, and you go straight out of high school. So now you go straight out of high school and you go into the NBA, and okay, the first round they guaranteed 4 years of the contract. So after that, let's say you wash out, injured, whatever happens, right? You're no longer playing in the NBA. My only concern, like you said, if it's not structured right, that now you have a person that's young that came straight out of high school, 17, 18 years old, 23, 24, and what are they supposed to do? See, people just look at the money, but like you said, if you're not savvy or the family is not savvy on how to handle the money, you could be broke out of the league and you can't go to college because you can't afford to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know for sure, because I coached in college for 1 year at University of Arkansas
Sure.
Little Rock, head
Okay.
basketball coach. So I saw how many different initiatives and professional development they have for student athletes now. If you don't pick up something outside of basketball with 4 years of college, then you were just not paying attention.
Gotcha.
I have to give the NCAA credit and the colleges credit. They're more focused on the whole person than what they were when we played. we were just we were just out there. And the reality is most kids, when I played and today, like you said, will never see the NBA. But here's the difference. In today's game, you can
Mm-hmm.
play in China, you can play in India, you can play in
Yeah.
the Philippines, you can play throughout the world. There's so many, just if you just want basketball. And we have to understand that some kids just want to play basketball. We shouldn't hold that against them if they don't if they don't want to go to school. They don't want to go to school. They want to hoop. That's all they want to do. Now that's not a majority of the players, but there are some players that's what they want. Nowadays, you have all these different options of where you can play, where we had very few options. It was just the NBA.
Sure.
You had a couple European teams, and that was pretty much it. So if you really love basketball and want to play basketball in today's world, you have just an open access. I coached in China for about 2 years, 18 months. And I
Okay.
saw what these pro players were getting in China. It would
Mm-hmm.
make you just drop your mouth open.
Mm-hmm.
So
It'll make you go play.
yeah, we have to understand, we have to respect that certain players will not want to graduate from college. Most players do. If they don't want to graduate, they want to just play ball. There's options out there for them now more than ever.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad you state that. What was your fondest memory of playing at Arkansas?
I guess when we started rolling and winning games, and we would come in this old aircraft. You know how the aircraft used to be. They were not jets, especially out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. You had like a twin propeller aircrafts, and we would fly
Ooh.
on this. It's called skyways. We just call it scareways because we were always scared when we took off. To take off scareways. Well, skyway, and we would come in at 10:30, sometimes midnight, and there would be hundreds of people waiting for the team. That's how proud they were of this team at Arkansas, and we hadn't won jack. We were winning games. We were rated number one, number two, but they would come out and they would just be so excited about the Razorback basketball team getting back to town after winning a ball game. And that's my fondest memories of playing at college basketball.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. That's good. No, if and the reason I say that because everything is different for everybody. So it's good to see that you appreciated the student body, the fan base.
Yeah, and it
Not
was
so.
mostly adults though.
Hey,
That, you know what
some
I'm
of
talking
us
about?
don't let it go.
That was crazy. We had a great student fan base, but those
Mhm.
evenings, it was mostly adults that they were just so proud. And one goal we had, Otis, when we came to Arkansas was to do something to bring the state together. I think Ron Brewer, Marvin Deff, Eddie Sutton, Pat Foster, Jimmy Council, all these guys, we were very focused on unity. and creating a one team environment. And we were able to do that in 4 years, and that's the most vivid memory I have of playing college.
Okay. Once you got what was that feeling for you once you got drafted? You know, like you said, you went from junior high school, and then of course you got to college, and then now here comes the NBA, and you got drafted. So what was that feeling like, especially back in those days?
Yeah, it wasn't as big of a deal as now. I knew I would be one of the first 7 players taken in the NBA draft. It was so funny when they said Milwaukee Bucks. I don't really remember being excited or anything. My personality, the oldest, is just like this most of the time. You can't. Very few things excite me. Very few things get me down. I just kind of go with the flow. They said Milwaukee Bucks. I'm like, okay, cool, Milwaukee. What kind of city is that? It's like I had no idea. I had to go.
Like, where is that?
I couldn't go to Google it. I couldn't Google it, right? I had to go to those old encyclopedias.
Encyclopedias,
you know what I'm talking about? We had a white set with burgundy and gold letters. Had to go and look up Milwaukee. And, the information was 10 years old because they came out every 10 years. And that's when I found out about Milwaukee. It's located here. Here's how the city is. Here's the population. And I said, okay. And the one thing I know is going to be cold. So let me just get ready to make the.
Well, at least you weren't playing football. So you still going to be indoors. You're going to be indoors.
That's right. Uh-huh.
So once you got into the league and you got drafted, and once you got settled, when did you feel like, okay, I can play with these guys? I've seen these guys on TV or whatever. When did you feel like I belong here now? I can run with these guys.
Well, one thing I do know is, and people don't realize, when you watch college basketball, and you watch NBA basketball, a lot of college fans don't understand how much of a higher level the NBA is. Okay. And most college players don't realize that. They see players play and they think, oh, I can play against Dr. J. I can play against Michael Jordan. Oh, they're not very good. If you come into the NBA with that mentality, unless you are LeBron James or just a Kobe Bryant, if you're not a superstar, you won't last long. And I think I came into the NBA not really sure and not really caring. All I wanted to do was compete. My attitude was, when I get on the court, I'm just going to compete. I'm going to play my best basketball. It took me, I don't know if I ever thought I didn't belong, nor did I think I belonged. It was like, Otis, when you're on the playground, you said, you pick your teams and you like, let's ball.
Let's go.
Seriously, let's ball. Let's just play. And the more I did that, the better I became. I had a great coaching staff and teammates. And every summer, I just got better. Every summer, just kept working on my game, working on my conditioning, working on my body. And I just got better every year.
Well, you had to, because and I'm sure you saw it. There was an interview Michael Jordan did about you, and he talked about, man, this dude won't quit.
Yeah, I had Harvey Ketchens, Bob Lanier, Marcus Johnson, Quinn Buckner, Bryant Winters. You talking about veterans of Richard Washington, people that could flat out play basketball. And I started with that type team as a rookie. So you can imagine you had to have your game on every day in practice, and it just made me compete at a higher level.
Well, you did that.
Thank you.
My next question for you is, do you feel too much emphasis is put on who's the greatest basketball player of all time? Like, I had this conversation with John Sally and Chris Broussard and Robert Scoop Jackson, and I said, maybe we should just say who's the top 10, the top 20, because I feel like when you're saying one guy is the best, but there are 5 positions, and then when you mention Kareem, they want to take Kareem, say, well, hold on, let's put him over here, and let's talk about the non-centers. I'm like, but I'm sorry, it's 5 positions on the court. I can't help because center is one of them is tall. So do you believe that maybe the focus or the talk should be more like who's the top, players, top 10, top 20, whatever, versus who's the greatest of all
Yeah.
time.
I did not used to think that way. I used to think you could just say the greatest of all times, but I've changed my philosophy now, and I feel
Hmm.
you should go by era. Which team, which player was the
Okay.
best player in the '90s, best player in the '80s, best players
Yeah.
in the '70s, best players in the '60s, and I think that's a better way of judging, uh, because the game's changed so much, and to me, it's all about the impact of the game. Who made the greatest impact? And I would
Okay.
say that Kareem and Michael Jordan. I mean, I take every era from when basketball started up to today, and that's just based on the impact that they had on the game. And with Kareem, you made a great point. High school, they won, I don't know, 80 straight games. College, 3 or 4 NCAA championships. NBA, multiple championships. Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue his impact, but you look at players today, they're balling out too. You just can't say LeBron is not a special player. You can't say Giannis, and you can't. So I'm kind of in between now. We don't really have to pick the greatest of all times. We really don't.
Right.
We just need to enjoy and appreciate the skill set that every player in that era brought to the game of basketball. And to me, that's a better way to look at it.
And Scoop Jackson said something that was profound. He said, "You really can't argue who's the greatest player of all time." He said because, like he said, like his father. He said his father was looking at Oscar Roberts. So he said, "How are you going to argue someone with their opinion? Like, yeah, you could talk about Jordan or whoever you want. If that's that person's opinion, then why are we arguing?"
Absolutely. Yeah, that's like Otis. That's valuing someone's opinion. And I just wrote a new book. It's called The Grit Factor in Embracing Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And
Okay.
I didn't emphasize enough. When we talk about diversity, we should talk more about diversity of opinions, where we start learning how to respect the fact that you might have a different thought process than I do about the flag and kneeling and standing. I should say, that's your opinion. I respect it. Here's my opinion. Respect my opinion. Let's go on. It doesn't have to be a debate about anything, because, like you said, it's the opinion of a person, and we have that right as Americans to have free opinions and free speech. And that's diversity. That's part of, to me, having a diverse society. Goes beyond ethnicity. It also includes opinions, including sports.
Well, that's why here on interruptions, we try to make sure that like we're interviewing you. So we want to hear from you. And it's not for me to debate whatever your opinion is. If I wanted to put my opinion out there was no need for me to have you as a guest. I could just put my own
Mhm.
opinion out there. But at the same time, then the show name is interruption. So sometimes when I ask a question, you could interrupt my own thought process because maybe I didn't see something the way you saw it. So I try to make sure, like you stated, I try to make sure I respect everyone's opinion and value their opinion. And
Mhm.
sometimes I may not see it that way, but guess what? I might grow to see it that way.
Well, and you brought up a good point. And I'm going to get very comfortable here.
Go
Uh,
ahead.
we should always be learning,
Right.
and that's a good thing about opinions. I might not agree with your opinion, but I need to listen to it, process it, and it probably has validity. I need to say, oh, you know what? I didn't totally agree with what Otis said. However, that little part that he said, that can help me. And we don't do that enough. We're so focused on processing our next argument
Correct.
that we miss. And I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes we miss those little nuggets that could help transfer us personally and can help us grow.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why here we don't debate. Is do you feel what do you feel today's athlete might be missing? And let me just put in context what I mean by that question. So I see, and you probably would agree with this. I see today's athlete, a little bit more athletic than some of the guys. Not all the guys, but some of the guys that you faced in the NBA. But what I do find is the guys in your era were smarter players.
Mhm.
So, so when I ask that question, what do you feel that today's athlete might be missing from their games versus when you played?
Okay. And I'm going to interrupt you for one thing.
Go
The
ahead.
most athletic player today would not be as athletic as the most athletic player when I played. Matter of fact, the top 3 or 4 athletic players today would not be more athletic than players. However, the
Mm-hmm.
top 50%, 50 players will be more athletic. So it's a numbers issue with the athleticism.
Sure.
And you talk about David Thompson, those type guys were, you,
Ooh.
I'm talking about athletics that could jump and just do things.
Uh,
And then I have players that people, Edgar Jones, I have players people never heard of that could elevate and just very athletic. So I always like to say when people say, oh, they're so much more athletic, I said, well, there's more athletic players. But I hadn't seen anyone that I can say was more athletic than a Dr. J or Michael
right.
Jordan or,
Right.
those. But let me talk about what they're missing. What they're missing is what you said, is
Okay.
basketball IQ.
Okay.
And they're missing basketball IQ because they did not grow up playing on the playground. They did not grow up playing freelance basketball.
Uh,
They play organized basketball all year round. So they're put at positions and they're told to do certain things, where most of our basketball that we played it was freelance. I might be a guard, I might be a center, I might be a forward, I might be anything. I was not restricted where I would play. And that helps your basketball IQ when you're able to do that. But when you're
wow.
put in these boxes for year after year after year, it limits your basketball IQ. And then the other thing that limits your basketball IQ is the fundamentals of the game. And
Okay.
when you decrease the, I hate to say this word, but I'm saying control that high school coaches have on their players, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
willy-nilly playing basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and the fundamentals, the footwork in the bounce passes, two hands chest pass,
Mm-hmm.
or they can handle the ball. So, I'm not going to say the handle,
Right.
the handles are like really tight, but just the fundamental things, how you set picks, how you cut, how you rebound, how you run a set. All those things are not as concise because your coaches from high school to college, 4 years of college, they demanded that you did things the right way consistently. And now coaches, if they make one demand on a kid, they'll transfer. You just can't.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
just say, I'm out of here, man. I'm going
Yeah.
somewhere else. You were asking too much of me. No, I'm not playing the 2 position. I'm playing the 1. I'm sorry. I'm going somewhere else. So now that becomes, to me, that hurts the game of basketball because it's all about the player and not about the game of basketball itself.
You know what? You said something, and it's truly a great what you said was a great comment, because I always felt like when you don't develop your game, like one of the things you learned on the playground, what you mentioned was, if let's say I'm not shooting, my shot is not on, right? You
Mm-hmm.
would tell me, you like, hey Otis, look, you're bothering him defensively. Don't worry about scoring. I gotta just get me the ball, but lock him down. But it forced you to do something else with your game, because your the person would let you know, like, well, look, get the rebound, get you learn, like you said, other things. So now I see sometimes, let's say you get to college, and now you're playing that boxing one or that 2-3 matchup zone, and because guys don't have the freedom, like just to drive the basket, now they don't know what to do, so everybody's just standing around.
Yeah,
And a
that's
team
a
like
good point.
Syracuse, I always tell people, a team like Syracuse, when they get in the tournament, they do damage because you haven't seen that zone.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has seen it, and you don't, unless you get hot shooting threes, pretty much you're going home.
Yeah, yeah. And Otis, you brought up a good point. You brought up a secondary point that I didn't bring up.
Okay.
You had to win back then. Remember,
Oh
if you
yeah.
play a pickup game, it's normally competitive, and there are other people waiting to play. Matter of
Oh
fact,
yeah.
there's more than one team ready to play. There's 2 or 3 teams ready to play.
If you
So if you
lose,
lost that game, you were sitting your butt down, not for 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes, but for 30 minutes. Fast forward
30
to
minutes to an
fast,
hour.
fast forward. You play one game in the morning, AAU, you lose, no big deal. You have another game 2 hours later. You lose, no big deal. Have a game that afternoon. You lose. You might play what 4 or 5 games in 2 days, maybe 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Back during the day, you play one game, your butt lost, you were gone. You were like done.
No.
And it added more value. I'm not saying guys don't try to win today.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying that we value winning a lot more because the consequences of losing was so great that you played harder to win.
Gotcha. My last question for you, and I purposely saved it for the last question, was what was that feeling like once you got that call for the Hall of Fame?
Well, I told you earlier that I don't get too high, get too low. I told you that.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
hey man,
I
we talk
know,
about the Hall of Fame
I
though.
know, but it's something about it. I had been close a number of times. I had been close. I assume I had been close, and I had really forgotten about it. I wasn't one of these bitter Billy Goat type guys that like, man, I can't believe though. Life goes on, right?
Yeah.
You don't make Hall of Fame. Life goes on, and life had really gone on for me. And then I started getting got nominated, got close. I got the other call, like, I'm sorry you didn't make it. Like, So when I got the call that I did make it, I was like, cool. That's the only thing I said. Cool. And I was really more proud of people that had been associated with me. That's kind of how my mind goes. It wasn't about, a lot of things are about me, but this was not about me. It was like, wow, okay. I had great teammates, good coaches, family support system. Now, and so many people were pulling for me to be in the Hall of Fame. It's like, and so now people can stop asking me, are you in the Hall of Fame? Man, I can't believe I'm in the Hall of Fame. That was the first thing I thought about.
You went in basically around this time last year, right? I'm talking about far as the date.
Yeah, September.
And
This year.
that's why I waited, because I said I gotta get Sidney on. But the reason I waited to this time to get you on because you're a birthday gift for me. So
Well,
my birthday is Monday.
oh,
So
right.
so when I saw you went in around this same time, I wanted to connect the dates.
Well, I'm glad you did because it was once we got to Springfield, of course, supporters came and they really, it was a great event. And it was certainly, but my attitude was like, I was telling a friend of mine, Junior Bridgman, when I was selected, I called him, I said, I don't know how I should feel because I don't really feel anything special.
Right.
And then he gave me the perspective. Only this many players in the history of the game goes into this nation's Hall of Fame. And it made me feel a little bit better. I'm going to get my wife to get one of my books so I can show it to you.
Okay.
So I'm going to act just like I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, real quick, and call her. Hey, Keisha,
That's fine.
hey, Keisha, bring me one of my books, please. Yes, I'm talking to you. Bring me one of my books. She said, are you talking to me? You're probably like, why are you talking to me? And you're on the, yeah, but my latest project, I want to make sure I cover it because it's so relevant.
Okay.
To what's going on in the world today, and so relevant to the legacy that I want to leave goes beyond basketball. It needs to be a little more sustainable than that.
You said my name, and you started.
Yeah. And this is, can you see this is my newest book.
The Grit Factor.
The Grit Factor and Embracing Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it's a very good book about how we can start closing this gap. And it deals with emotional intelligence, building better relationships, understanding our emotions better. And emotional intelligence is the capacity and ability to understand and manage our emotions and our relationships. And you just can't have a magic wand and say, whoa, let's everyone get along. No,
Okay.
we have to start right here with ourselves and understanding ourselves better. The mindfulness concept of understanding what's going on around you, within you, and how you react to situations. So this book has really been a life changer for a lot of people. And this is my contribution to make this world better.
Okay.
They can go online. They can go to sidneymoncrief.com, sidneymoncrief.com, and they can purchase a book, 2 or 3 books, give it to someone. And it is a wonderful, wonderful tool to move forward in that area.
Well, I'm gonna make sure I put the when I put the video out, I'm gonna put the website, um, the link on the channel, on the YouTube channel, so everyone can click on your website and go in there and see all the things that you're doing. And I want to have you back because I would love to get you. We interviewed Terry Porter a couple of weeks ago,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
would love to get you, Terry Porter. I did interview Mr. Julius Irvin,
That doc.
and I want to get do like a round table, and here's why: is because a lot of times people are interviewing you guys, right? And so they're talking about then versus now, right? Well, how
Mhm.
about we just get the players from that era
Oh
on
yeah.
here
Yeah. Right. Talk about
and talk
then.
about
Then.
yeah.
First time I faced
So
Terry Porter, I knew he was tough as nails, boy.
yeah,
He was tough. I remember trying to bump him and be aggressive and physical. He was like a brick wall. And those were the days where you could do a little bit more with your body and being physical with players.
and if you and I'll check with you to see what your schedule is, but also once the NBA finals is set, as far as who they have, let's get back on and maybe do a talk about the finals, right? Who
Okay.
team person and watch this and have basketball people
Yeah. Yeah.
who
That's right.
played the game talk
Right.
about the game versus people who hadn't played at that level. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Interruption. Thank you for blessing me with your presence. We'll put all that information out there for you. And once again, stay blessed and stay safe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aldous. You have a great one. Thank you.
Peace out.
Bye.